Let's start with a very interesting story from aggravating underscore bike underscore 606. Do you want to put me on watch? I'll request you to watch me then. My first post here. First, I would like to thank you all for the amazing environment. I've been back to Reddit because of this place and reading up all the posts I can. I love that you all have a kink for justice as big as a kink for storytelling. My story begins working for a financial institution. Heaps of overworking and abuse. And we were contractors from a company in Brazil. We worked 12 plus hours daily easily as we had to deploy stuff at midnight as it was a critical app. I was online all the time. I took all the heavy fire from the client who dealt directly with me. I had a manager who did nothing and despised me because the team loved me. She didn't know the teammates' names and things like this. We were the only team to have a planned on-duty schedule set up the month before, and everyone relied on us, client side and contractor company side. I was the only one the client had the cell phone, and they never complained. This manglewoman loved to give everyone's phones to the client so he could call devs non-stop, Saturdays, Sundays, moon or sun on the sky. I've put my foot down for the first time with this. The second time, she tried to send a 2-month girl intern to work with all males from another contractor company. You could imagine how workplace abuse would be dealt with. Alone. Now I know there's a lot of amazing people in the world, but I wouldn't put my hand in the fire for the tech community, sorry. This was the second time I've put my foot down. We had an altercation in a call with the client, because I directly said the intern productivity would plummet having to work with a strange team and under rules that are not our company's, and this could even lead to a lawsuit. She was pissed. We hung up. She calls me alone 0.2 seconds later and scolds me asking how do I think questioning her would be perceived. Now, I'm a scrum master. The only thing I do is conduct meetings and defuse bombs, so I thought she could use the neuron I freely gave her with my explanation. And I answered, hushing these serious decisions in front of the client said more about her incompetence than to discuss with me in front of him. I think I heard a vein pop on her head. She hung up. Now it gets good. Thanks for reading my introduction. 30 minutes pass, and I receive an email stating I was on HR watch for misconduct and insubordination. I was required to take one mentoring session weekly during 1 month, filling up an Excel through the week with everything I did and recounting on these sessions to see where I could improve. The thing is, she saw the dumpster fire the project was and just got accepted to switch project client, so she was going away next week or so. And my new manager would be a flower of a person who had nothing to do with this shit. I called HR and told them I would like to request her as my personal mentor, as she was the one who pointed so many improvement feedbacks to better my performance and was an example for me of what not to do, but I left this part out. They thought this was an amazing idea. The sessions had her and the HR worker responsible for the case, so she had to put a mentoring face, and lo and behold, I turned into Caspar Hauser during those sessions. I asked everything. I would fill the Excel to the brim with everything I did, including emails, chat convos, and even screen grabs from my personal phone the client used to message and requested to go through them so she could approve my company speech. I would link Excel files inside this Excel file so she had absolutely everything I did. 1 per row. Those sessions took 2 to 3 hours every Friday, scheduled at 8 a.m. by me, as she would be sure to complain when the team worked until 2 a.m., and I would let them come in late. She would have to rate everything in a drop-down cell, write the week's outcome, and come up with action points for next week. I couldn't help her with this, as I was there to learn. In the last meeting, I requested her manager to be on the meeting, a woman who filled my manager gaps when I needed most, and we had an amazing relationship. She agreed, as in her view, this was a successful mentoring case from her employer. I finished the meeting, asked for 2 minutes at the end, and forwarded my 2 weeks, here in Brazil it's 4, written by hand, with all the points that made me quit and receipts, including a part of the fight in front of the client I was able to record with my phone when I saw things going south. I still think about her, so this is the sad thing. But I now have an amazing job at a big tech and vowed to never be like her. The malicious compliance was flawless, strategic, exhausting for the manager, and poetic in its execution. By forcing her to engage in pointless, time-consuming mentorship, the OP exposed her incompetence while securing a better future. A masterclass in using bureaucracy against a terrible boss. The next story from iStabs. I want to be notified about every single critical issue. And then he greatly regretted it. Years ago, I ran the daily operations of a mid-size IT company. Large enterprise, government, medical, and other facilities would outsource their IT to the team I ran. We had departments that supported us with finance and sales, but all other operations fell under my management. I answered to the owner of the company, who was great when we started off together, but over time grew very resentful and abusive. Long ago, he worked in IT, but nowadays his skills were outdated and his knowledge was on par with a Tier 1 technician. But if he actually tried to do the job, then the actual Tier 1s would have easily outperformed him. I oversaw a few dozen technicians, and we managed IT for thousands of companies, with each technician closing approximately 150 tickets a day, empowered by automation and their own knowledge. Since these companies and government entities were responsible for things like actual 911 services, running prisons, doing dangerous pressure testing in environments with explosion risks, and more, you can imagine we were routinely receiving tickets that were urgent. In fact, we had a system clearly defined that dictated exactly what criteria constituted emergency versus urgency. Even with all that in place, half our tickets would meet the criteria of being an emergency. Things as simple as a camera not working could mean not seeing criminals waiting on the other side of a door, for example. My team lived every day fully immersed in emergency, to the point where we were all dead inside. We would rise to the responsibility and treat it appropriately, but when everything is an emergency, nothing is an emergency. We regularly heard compliments about how cool-headed and calm we were able to respond to emergencies, which was always funny to us because internally we knew it was because we stopped giving a fuck years ago, but still knew how to be professional. Over time, feedback from co-workers regarding things said behind my back and to my face, I can only assume the owner felt threatened by me and the way the team looked to me to lead. He would give them bad instructions or orders they knew would go against something standard, and they would look to me to confirm. He accused me of a lot of horrible things, got really abusive, and would routinely try to tear me down in front of everyone. I essentially lived on call 24/7 and would rely on technicians being skilled enough to not escalate to me after hours. But it was unavoidable. When they knew a choice had to be made and not just a solution provided, they would always call to ask which I preferred. No big deal. It helped me keep clients happy by choosing options I knew they would want from my experience with their managers. Sometimes I would be unavailable when they would try to call, and as an alternative, if they could not reach a senior engineer on our team, they would finally surrender and call the owner. They didn't want to be responsible for bad decisions, and I don't blame them. Calling the owner gave them some CYA, cover your ass. Every time this would happen, the owner would always drastically exaggerate the urgency of the situation and treat it like it was the biggest case we had in months. It was always all hands on deck needed to support him in this crisis that he was creating, and so more technicians would get involved and drastically more hours invested than necessary. Then he would inevitably pat himself on the back for how great he is in solving this massive emergency. Use it to highlight why he is around and how the big problems go to him. Then circle back to rip me apart in front of everyone once we are all back in the office to show how I'm not managing my responsibilities and how much better he is than myself. To quote an old line from a shitty movie, to him it was the biggest emergency in months. But to me, it was Tuesday. Anyways, not to get too boring and rant too much, he ripped me in front of everyone. Took me behind closed doors to yell at me how this one particular emergency could have cost us so much money. Cost us the customer. And it's my entire fault. I'm tired of his so I tell him how it could have been resolved compared to how he resolved it, and that he is so unaware of daily operations, he has no idea how insignificant this issue was by comparison. He assures me he is aware of every detail going on in this company at all times. He's not, and that if emergencies are happening, then he needs to be notified of them. I tell him he's underestimating how many emergencies happen, and he's fuming that I'm not taking his. He makes a mistake and demands, yelling, "From now on, I want to be notified about every single critical issue." I ask him if he's fine with me notifying him by email. He screams back, "Do whatever the you want. I want to be notified about every single critical issue from now on." So I promise him I will absolutely notify him and keep him informed of everything from here forward. He's the boss. For anyone not aware, a common form of malicious compliance in the IT world is for someone to invest a very small amount of effort into scripting or automating something that causes another person's life to be a living nightmare. The boss is old and operates slowly through his day using email. He never goes into the ticket system and doesn't abide by any of the policies he screams at people for not following. In our ticket system, the tickets assigned to him are like entering a graveyard of endless promises that never happen and constant lies about not seeing that email. It takes me all of 2 minutes to set up a rule that our system automatically sends him an email absolutely any time a ticket is marked critical. Even if it's done incorrectly and someone more senior corrects it back to a lower status, too late, email is already sent. Immediately he gets hundreds of emails for his own existing tickets, then thousands more follow for all the other tickets. His inbox is so out of control that his lies about not seeing that email are suddenly made real. Making the situation even funnier, he was meeting with a client at their office when the tones on his phone started going off every time he received an email. He started texting me not even a half hour after the automated rules creation, asking me to turn it off, explaining how it's impacting his meeting. I ignored his texts and let the rule run long enough that I was sure his inbox was royally fucked, and he would have to ask me in person to turn it off. Instead of apologizing, he told me to turn the notifications off in person, but also made it clear that I needed to get to work to get things under control. Clearly, it was my bad leadership causing there to even be so many emergencies in the first place. If these are all an emergency, then why are technicians going home at the end of the day, and so on? A few weeks after this, I had a new job offer that I accepted. I didn't even give him notice when I quit. I walked in on Monday morning and grabbed two things off my desk, went find him, and handed him the keys to the building and looked him in the eyes and told him, "You know, you're a real piece of shit." He was fuming, but didn't say a word as I walked out the door. Within a year of me leaving his company, quickly began to fail. Last I saw, he only has 3 people working for him now, and he had to sell the building they owned and move into a much older, shabbier one in a different part of town. The malicious compliance was flawless, swift, and devastating. By automating the chaos, he claimed to control, and the boss was buried in his own arrogance. It was the perfect mix of justice and irony, proving his incompetence while making his life miserable. The next story from party_shape, 557 ... My boss hired 2 interns to replace me and asked me to train them after they were planning to fire me. I'm going to start out by saying that English is not my first language, and I wasn't sure that this story belongs here, as this is my first time posting. I used to work in media intelligence, which is a really niche market in the country that I am from. I started as an assistant and learnt everything from scratch. As I switched from the hospitality industry, pretty big step I know, I was eager to learn and was really interested in what they do as I was trying to get into media back then. First of all, as I learnt everything from scratch, I got really good at what I do after just 6 months working there. I was in a 3-person team, and I had one of the best bosses and a rally good colleague, which were veterans in the industry. Both of them helped me a lot to get me where I am then. They left the company after just a year there, as upper management was just plain hot garbage. The company had 4 changes in direction within a year, and it was stressing my team out. They did ask me to leave with them, but with me being young and naive trying to prove myself, I declined. The story, after my boss and colleague left, it was just me and my team, and I was in charge of a few markets. I was asked to be on call for technical support and was not offered anything in return. At the time, I was pissed, but also trying to prove myself, I obliged. I got really stressed out from working 13 hours a day for a few months at that point, and I kept asking my manager to hire more people, as I can't be working like this, and it's stressing me out. My manager went on and on saying they don't have the budget for it, so I just forgot about it, drowning myself in work. One day, the CEO of the company came, and we had dinner, as he was growing close to me since I was the only one person left who actually know the in and out of the old and new system that the company used. Keep in mind, this CEO is a cheapskate and will try all and every way to suck you dry. He asked me what I wanted to change in the company during dinner, so I started off with asking for 2 new hires for my team, where he gave me the same answer as my manager, so I asked him for a promotion and a raise, which was also declined, saying, "You don't have the necessary experience yet." I was pissed. As a normal person would expect, after working 13-hour days for months, you would need rest. I had almost 3 weeks of PTO saved, and I needed the rest. The manager threatened to fire me if I took any PTO, as no one was able to do what I did. I took the PTO anyways. I got well rested, and all was good until I came back. There were 2 new faces, and I was pretty confused, so I asked my manager who were they, and she told me they were my replacements. She told me my notice was 2 months, and I had to train them before I leave. She couldn't do anything, as I was the only one in the company who knew how to run the legacy and the new systems, so realistically, she couldn't say that I was not training them properly, as she didn't know how things work. Here is the part where the malicious compliance happens, since the manager did not know how things work. She told me to train the interns on the legacy systems to know better on how the company was built up, and I did just that. She told me strictly to just train the interns on the legacy, and she will be dealing with the rest. Sure, I'll do just that. It was until my last week when the shit really hit the fan. My manager found out that I have been only giving training on the legacy system, and I didn't give them my notes with tips on how to run the system that needed to be used for daily operations. My manager called in the CEO and the managing director to hold a meeting with me asking me why I hadn't trained my replacements properly. I just told them I did what my manager told me to, which the manager denied, until I forwarded the CEO and MD the email that my manager has sent me, which the call promptly ending. After I left the company, I was patiently waiting for the call that was bound to come. It was my manager. She demanded me to get back to work and said that the firing was just prank blah. I told them, pay me triple my wage and I'll consider it. They called me crazy and ended the call. It's been 2 months since that call, and based on a good friend from another department, my old manager is neck deep in this shit show. TLDR, fire me from taking PTO, get fucked. Edit, thank you for the kind and nice comments. And to those who think I'm making this up, you're entitled to have your opinion, but fuck you. Edit 2. So I've gotten into contact with my ex-colleagues. My ex-manager is now exploring greener pastures, and the 2 interns quit after a bit. The company had to scrap the new system where they spent a lot developing, and then had to buy out another company specializing in system development and maintenance, which costed them $12 million. Guess who'd be able to run their systems cheaper? Wink, wink. The malicious compliance and revenge were perfect and executed flawlessly. By strictly following orders, OP ensured the company's downfall without breaking a single rule. The CEO's greed and the manager's incompetence led to their own ruin. A masterclass in workplace revenge.